Peace to you all. My name is Umi. Thank you guys for joining me again for another video. And today we're going to be delving into the master number 33. I do encourage you to watch the video on master number 11 and master number 22. Even if these are not your birthday numbers, your life path, soul, or destiny number, this is a study. So like astrology, although we can spend a great amount of time studying our own natal chart and our own zodiac signs, the purpose of transcending a thing is like so that you can embody the teachings associated with all of it. The knowledge is for our growth and development. So we're trying to go beyond sort of the mundane application of these things. Remember, esoteric means for the few, exoteric means for the many. So for those of you who are gathered and you're joining me and we're learning and dissecting these master numbers, this is actually us expounding on our knowledge, and it's not limited to just the mundane, our day-to-day lives, like how does that apply to me, or this is my birthday number. That is definitely useful to some extent, but you want to get a fuller understanding of what these numbers represent as it pertains to the collective, because it's not just you evolving, it's the entire planet. Even Mother Earth herself has a consciousness, and we want to contribute our thoughts, our energy, our efforts toward the collective consciousness. So that's why this study is very useful. I will like to add a few words. If you saw the video on master number 22, I don't know how I forgot to apply the word mind. That's M-I-N-D. It equals 22. And many of you have heard the phrase mind over matter, which is very relevant to self-mastery, because we are in essence overcoming the density and the desires and limitations of third dimension, third density. And this is going to bring us into master number 33. So we're going to first talk about the number 3 briefly so we have some idea. If you've seen some of the other videos I've done in Gematria, I've talked about the number 3 and its connection to cycles. Number 3 in and of itself is a symbol. So we're looking at the numbers as a symbol. We're studying the numbers as a language. So number 3, if you keep drawing it, it makes a spiral or a coil. And as you know, a coil is often used so that electricity can flow. It's like current. And this is how energy can flow up or down. So I've mentioned about the number 6. This is energy flowing down. I've talked about the number 9, energy flowing up. And we're looking at this all in terms of symbolism. So the number 3 is connected to this coil, which is how energy flows. We all have an association with this number because we all elevate in consciousness, and we often experience a fall in consciousness. This is when we slip into darkness or ignorance or uncertainty, fears, phobias. The higher mind takes a drop and we begin to just focus on survival. We focus on, sometimes just very negative things in our reality. So you have your personal experience of this energy of 3 in cycles, things that keep coming back around in your life lessons you haven't quite mastered. And then we have collective cycles. So this is when humanity as a whole goes through its cycle, which is a large amount of time. Most of us can't fathom 13,000 years or 25,000 years of a cycle. But in essence, our collective consciousness goes through cycles. So right now, what many of us are witnessing, in addition to the information age coming online, allowing people to exchange knowledge and information, this is an opportunity for the collective to elevate in consciousness, meaning we're moving from the dark ages and the times where we've spent in wars and fighting and violence and hatred and separation. Even though that seems to be the theme right now on the planet, this is just things coming to the surface, coming to a head before we collectively move and shift and elevate out of third density, out of third dimensional perception. So number 3 is important, obviously, to this number. I've mentioned that 33 is connected to manifestation. So that is not the end all be all, that number is only associated with manifestation. We're going to talk and I'm going to have to break the video up into 2 parts. But we're going to talk about why this number is connected to manifestation. Simply because we live in a material world. People can usually only identify with their reality based on what is manifested, what's physical, what's in form, what's materialized, what's tangible, what's there. As you've heard the saying, to see it is to believe it. So people typically have to see a thing to believe it. And this is why also in modern times, more and more people are kind of drifting away from those old Bible stories, because they think, well, that's not possible. Science has disproved that. That didn't really happen. Of course, much of that is symbolic and esoteric, but for the knowledge that's dispensed to the masses, many people still hold fast to those teachings, and they believe these things have transpired on the planet. So when we're talking about the material plane, 33 is connected to manifesting things into physical form, but it has to start from a higher thought. Even an idea has to go from here to manifesting it, bringing it into existence, whether it's thinking of a cake and then baking it, or intending to take over a nation and then actually implementing everything to carry that act out, and it becomes evident that it materialized. The idea, the thought, the plan materialized. So 33 and the number 3 are connected to materializing or manifesting something into physical form. Let's begin with a key word, and the word is bonds. And this is going to be very important to the duration of this video, or this first part of the master number 33. So if you're familiar a little bit with bonds, I'm speaking in economic terms. Bonds collect value over time. It's basically that someone's issued a bond and they have to pay you back the principal. So your money is kind of tied up for a while, but the way you get a return on your investment when it comes to bonds is that it collects interest. So bonds collect value over time. And I'm going to try and apply this both on a collective level and then also in terms of individual, how we understand this concept individually. So just stick with me for a moment. We're going to start with the first letter, and we're going to break down each word that makes up this word bonds, and you see how this will apply. So the first word in bonds is believe, B-E-L-I-E-V-E. So let's do the gematria to this. We are again assigning a number to each letter. B is 2, 5. The word believe equates to 33. Why is this important? Because obviously what a person believes is what they will strive for, where we place our desires, where we place our interests, our energy, our efforts. So some may argue what we believe is just not that important. It doesn't matter what you believe. The truth is the truth. Unfortunately, humans have proven that when we can collectively believe something, no matter how wrong it is, we fuel it, we give it power. It can become a truth even if it's not true. So that's why it's very important for the powers that be. This could be the media, the news, entertainment, religious teachings, doctrines. It's important to control what people believe, because in essence, this allows us to establish some form of order. And we're going to talk about this next word, order, as well, in connection with the word believe. So order, O-R-D-E-R. Which is this? 9 times 3 is 27, plus 6 is 33. It's important that what a person believes is controlled or even manipulated to some extent. This is the negative manifestation of this number or this energy, because humans have the power to co-create. We have the power to manifest things. If I want to control a massive amount of people, it's important that I control what they believe and what they fail to believe that they have the power to do. If you don't believe you have the power to change your reality and you have no hand in what's happening around you, then in essence, I can use your belief to control how you live, how you worship, how you carry out your life. So this was very systematic, has been used systematically over time to control how people see themselves, whether it's inferior. If I can convince you to believe that you are inferior, then I can control you and use that inferior mindset to establish order in society. If I can control how conscious people are becoming, I can flood the internet with information that makes people question what they believe. Therefore, they're less likely willing to put their energy, their belief, time, and effort into bringing about certain change because they don't believe it. So it's a very powerful thing. Belief is not something we should just scoff at or ignore because, oh, people believe so much different stuff, forget what you believe. It's the science says this, the truth says that. Unfortunately, some know just how powerful human belief can be in terms of manifestation. If I believe I can, lose 100 pounds, I'm going to work at it. I'm already focused. I'm committed. I've already envisioned it. So I'm working to manifest that thing I believe for myself. That's on an individual level. If I believe that 1 million people meditating at one time has the power to stop a war, and I spread this news, I spread this belief, I spread this ideology, certainly people can gather and then we will actually see results of something that seemed to be quite questionable in its probability. Like, what's the likelihood? People can blah, 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 and we discredit these things. But humans have come together time and time again to show the power of collective belief. So it can be very frightening for those who are in positions of authority or power when people get together and they centralize their belief on a thing. So this is why order is important to what people believe. Remember, the central word here is bonds. So we're going to move on to the next word, which is name. Now, name is very important as well. Not only the physical name that we each have, like you and I have a name. The name we have bears significance in its connection to our destiny. So let me explain. The name that you were given at birth, no matter how irrelevant or random your name may seem, your name has meaning. Your name has power, some measure of power. Is it always accessed? Do we always tap into the energy and potential of our name? Absolutely not. It's one of those things that people don't believe have much power or relevance. But for those who profess to really hold true to scripture, you can think of many people in the Bible whose name changed, or God gave them a new name in connection with their destiny. As Abram's destiny changed and he became Abraham. I believe Jacob became Israel. If you watch the movie Blood Diamonds, when the young boys were recruited to partake in the Civil War, their names changed from their birth names to names like Headhunter or Baby Killer. This is true for gangs. When you get initiated into gangs, then the name changes in connection to what it is you do within the gang. No matter how violent or cruel the act is, the name changes in connection with the person's purpose, your new path. So the name is very important. Okay, so name equates to 33. We're looking at how it is that our purpose or our destiny manifests in accordance with our name. So for example, I was born Carlina. That's my first name I was given at birth is Carlina. But years ago, the name Umi kind of manifested for me in connection with the new purpose that was being formed for me or in me. And Umi in Arabic means mother. So it's more of a title. My children call me Umi the way their children say mom. My children call me Umi. But in addition to that, the numerology associated with Umi and my interest and connection to mysticism, it also can mean using my influence to teach or share certain truths related to mysticism. So my name is very much in connection with my destiny, which is the next word we are going to look at in order to tie all of this information in. Remember, B is believe, O is order, N is name, in connection with your purpose, how you manifest your destiny on this earth plane. Then we're looking at the word destiny. All of you have heard this word in connection with your purpose, what you're here to do, where your soul is driven. So we're going to do the gematria to this. So destiny equates to 33. Your name is connected to your destiny, just to put it plainly. If you've had an interest to change your name because you're not really sure how your name at birth is really related to your destiny or your purpose, you can look up your name to see if there's any written definition or explanation for your name. If not, you can also use the numerology as a way to unlock certain potential within your name. We also all have a hidden name, which is our middle names. That's connected to our purpose as well. That's a whole nother video. But I just wanted you to observe how, even if some of you who have seen the movie Roots, Kunta Kinte, his name is changed to Kobe when he's brought to, is it Kobe? I think it's Kobe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but his name is Toby. Toby. His name is changed once he is brought to the States. When he's brought here to North America, his name is changed for a purpose that redirected his destiny. It kind of stripped him of his power and what his name meant. And the naming ritual that is done in parts of Africa is a very important thing. It's very vital to the soul when they are brought here, whether you are going to be a hunter or a fisher or a teacher or a mother of many. Your name had a purpose in connection with your destiny. So to have someone strip that name away from you strips you of your power, strips you of your destiny. So it has been very important to change and manipulate people's name over time, people's language over time. And you can identify your power, your hidden potential. You can give yourself a name. But certainly the more people who use that name and who fuel that name and who speak that name gives that name power, and it also builds up confidence within you. So no, not many people know my middle name or call me by my middle name, but my middle name, and all of us who have a middle name for that matter, is your hidden nature. So it could be also connected to the essence of who you are. Even if the name, if you look it up and it means something ridiculous or unimportant or silly, you're like, well, I don't think this is me. It's not necessarily just about how other people define it. Understanding and knowing yourself helps you to really retrieve the truth of your potential and who you are. It doesn't have to come from someone else describing you or telling you who you are. So we've looked at believe. We've looked at order. We're going to move on to the next word, which is seed. So if we were to add this up, we have 29 plus 4, which is 33. I'll put that on digitally. So seed, what is important about seed? We're speaking of generations. We're speaking of our offspring, quite literally your seeds, your children. If you don't have children, we're speaking of this generation and the generations to come. So all of this is connected. And all of this is related to, let's say, for example, the United States is a corporation, it's a business. And therefore, the people here, we allow the country to acquire wealth over time if these particular factors are in place. Controlling what people believe to establish order, having an impact or control over even the name of a society of people. And this is differentiated by class. So upper class, middle class, lower class. These things are naming groups of people. And this is what contributes to separation. And this is what affects how people think about themselves and their society as a whole. So it doesn't have to be that the government named you, your mom or dad named you, but you can fall under a category. You can fall under a classification. These are names that limit your perception of things, limit even who you believe that you are. So your seed, or the seed, influences generations to come. So this is why it's important to even have an influence over what the generations to come think and how what they believe and how they are influenced by society. It's important that we contribute to that, because it keeps the cycle going. Remember, we're talking about 3 and its connection to cycles. So would I not want to have some influence over the generations to come? This is even now seen if you look at, when you go to the grocery store, there's a lot of seedless fruit. Certainly this is not natural, as we don't imagine seedless men in society. Why would we want to partake of seedless fruit? Even if it may seem convenient, it's not natural. So a seed is natural, but the moment people began to tamper with our offspring, with stuff that's creating infertility in humans, and even just manipulating what the generations to come, how they're influenced and impacted. We see this now in the digital age, in the information age. It's such a blessing to have the information age, otherwise you wouldn't be tuning in. At the same time, it allows for so much disinformation, fake news, bad news, anything to spread fear, confusion, and separation, isolation. So it has its negative, and that is affecting the seed in essence. So when we're saying seed, we're also speaking of the seed that is planted within the consciousness. What you're told and fed and how you're nurtured as a child, this is all like how a seed is nurtured within the earth, whether it's going to sprout and become a fruit-bearing tree, or it's going to be a weed, or it's going to just wither and die and never produce fruit. All of this starts in the process of how that seed is nurtured. So it's a cycle. We have to be mindful of this cycle, what it is that we're teaching the youth so that they're coming up with knowledge. Remember, much of this is hidden or forbidden or forgotten knowledge for a reason, because it allows those powers that are still at play. Remember, scripture speaks of spiritual wickedness in high and low places. So it's not just mere humans that we're talking about. We're talking about a force that is intending to keep humans in third density, because that is where the bonds allow for your soul to collect value and to keep you here, to keep you in bondage, to keep you bound to this system and to this world. But evolution, elevating out of third density, gives us freedom. It allows us to co-create without limitations, but we first have to adjust what it is that we believe about ourselves, who we are. Erykah Badu has a song called 20 Feet Tall. When you get off your knees, you realize you're 20 feet tall. And many of us have been crawling around trying to survive and scrape up wealth and power for ourselves. And even within the churches, they have such an indecent amount of wealth that it's not allowing people to grow. It's still keeping people in bondage. You're a sinner, you're lowly, you're either going to go to heaven or hell. Same lies are being perpetuated that keep people in psychological and spiritual bondage. So although I was speaking of bonds in an economic sense, and that your soul collects value over time, the longer you're stuck in this third dimensional cycle, but also bonds in terms of bondage, being held captive, being stuck. So this can get certainly very deep and complex, but scripture says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, but to store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and thieves cannot break in and steal. So how is it that we store up treasures in heaven? What does this mean? It's symbolic. There's nothing material here that I can store up in some ethereal plane. It has to be connected to what I'm investing in my soul's maturing and my soul's evolution and growth, spiritual maturity. This is storing up treasures in heaven. So we have 33 vertebrae. Let's imagine this is vertebrae, and we have 33 vertebrae. So what I'm storing up is not connected to the material plane, what's down here on earth. When we transition, we don't take our thoughts with us and our emotions with us and all of that. But what does carry on is what's been embedded in the soul as you've gone through training and you've had lessons that have had an impact. It's been embedded on the soul. So that's what we are shifting and adjusting and elevating with, those memories that's connected to the soul, that residue that rests on the soul. That's what we elevate with. So if you were to rise up the spinal column and cross the bridge of the medulla oblongata and enter into the pineal and these other areas of the brain that accesses the God consciousness, this is what is kept, and this is what is transitioned with us into higher planes, into an evolved state. Even if reincarnation, which was once taught within the Christian church, it was once taught widespread globally until 500 or something. You can study the Council of Nicaea, read the Nag Hammadi libraries, study these things, and you'll come to see why it was important to strip people of that truth related to reincarnation, or at least the teachings connected to reincarnation. So I'd mentioned the word teacher equals 33, as well as a host of other words that we have not gotten to in this video. But I wanted to start with bonds because many of you are not aware of the manipulation that is happening connected with this third dimensional plane, and why your soul is in essence bonds, like a bond here. It has value and it collects more and more value over time as interest is paid, as you guys begin to invest more into this world, this third dimensional reality. We start to invest in it and we start to store up treasures here. But we don't get to keep these things. They don't go with you when you transition. So that's not really what we need to be focused on. Obviously, if I can't take my car, my house, or none of this material stuff with me, what use does it have? Why not focus on the things that empower and enrich my soul? Because that's what's journeying. The flesh is staying here. It gets returned to Mother Earth. It belongs to her. It's earth. Dust you came, dust you shall return. I have no use of these things. It can stay and rest here. But what I can take, or what does transition again, is the wealth that the soul, the jewels that the soul has received. Knowledge is connected to these jewels. Wisdom is connected to these jewels. Purifying the heart is connected with these jewels, because we're not taking with us the pain, loss, sorrow, death, all of the hardships that can be embedded on the soul. Certainly that is very possible. People transition and have lived a life of difficulty and hardship and pain that is embedded on the soul. And that's what karma creates when we come back into life and re-enter into the womb and we're born again in this third dimensional reality. We are in essence working out all of that karmic debt, or all of those energies that are still plaguing the soul have to be released. This is what sets us free, and we're no longer in that bondage. So very deep subject in talking about master number 33. I also wanted to share this with you guys. Congratulations, you are learning the language of numbers. So let's see. So this is a phrase, right? And most of us don't. It's funny because it reminds me of, I think his name was Switch in the movie The Matrix, and he was reading the screen and all you see is like codes and numbers, and he was able to read it. So this is numbers, but if we were to apply letters to the numbers instead of vice versa, I usually will write the numbers under the letters, then you will see that this is a language. I love you. And it's just simply broken down in the numbers. So I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We will delve more into master number 33 because some of you are very curious as to how it applies to you personally. Like, it's your birthday number. You have other inquiries about what you're supposed to do with this number, like it's in your chart and you don't know how you're supposed to activate it or tap into it. So the next video, I'll speak more directly on the manifestation, and we'll go into words like fulfill and desire and magic and manifestation itself, or manifest. All of these words equating to 33, so we can really see more how it applies to the more mundane and just this material world. So if you guys have, your own personal insights onto this number, please share it. You never know who you are inspiring by sharing your insights and intuition regarding this. And until next time, peace.